The council chamber stretched wide like an arena, its curved walls made of glass that showed the stars beyond. 200 species sat in their designated seats, some breathing oxygen, others in specialized bubbles filled with methane or liquid nitrogen. At the center stood Ambassador Sarah Chen, her simple gray suit looking plain compared to the elaborate armor and robes around her. She waited. That was what humans did best, it seemed. Wait, listen, and speak softly. The human refuses our reasonable request, War Leader Vex Thor announced, his forearms spreading wide in a gesture of disbelief. The Crithian stood 3 meters tall, his exoskeleton gleaming red under the chamber lights. Again, they delay. Again, they ask for more time. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Chen recognized the pattern. She had seen it in 50 years of Earth's membership in the Galactic Council. The other species whispered, calculated, and slowly stopped taking humanity seriously. The Tau Ceti colonies produce rare minerals, Vex Thor continued, his voice booming through translation devices. Minerals the Crithian Empire needs for expansion. The humans claim these worlds, yet they barely use them. 3 colonies, with only research stations. This is waste. Chen stepped forward, her movements measured and calm. The Tau Ceti colonies are legally registered to Earth under Galactic Charter Section 42, Subsection 7. They have been our territory for 33 years. Legal words? Vex Thor laughed, a sound like grinding metal. We speak of reality. The Crithian Empire has a fleet. The humans have. What? Science vessels? Medical ships? He turned to address the council. In 50 years, has anyone here seen a human warship? Have they ever shown force? Ever claimed victory in battle? The silence that followed was not supportive. Chen felt it like a weight. The Xenothari representative, a floating crystal being that communicated through light pulses, added its concern. The human pattern is clear. In the border dispute of 2251, they yielded 4 asteroid mining facilities. In the trade conflict of 2263, they abandoned their claims rather than fight. In the resource war of 2279, they relocated an entire colony to avoid confrontation. We chose peace, Chen said quietly. We always choose peace when possible. You choose surrender, Vex Thor corrected. There is a difference, human. One is noble, the other is simply weak. More murmurs. Chen saw representatives nodding, some looking at their datapads, reviewing Earth's history with the Council. Every conflict resolved through negotiation. Every dispute ended with human compromise. Every confrontation met with diplomatic solutions. What they did not see, what they could not understand, was why. I request 30 days for Earth to consider the Crithian proposal, Chen said, maintaining her calm tone despite the humiliation burning in her chest. 30 days to prepare another surrender speech? Vex Thor's laughter echoed through the chamber. Several other representatives joined him. The Council Arbiter, an ancient Vorelian whose species had maintained peace for 3,000 years, raised a tentacle for silence. The human request is within protocol. 30 days are granted. Its voice carried disappointment, as if even this neutral arbiter expected nothing from humanity but eventual capitulation. Chen bowed slightly and returned to her seat. She felt the eyes of 200 species watching her retreat. She heard the whispers in a dozen languages, all translated through her earpiece. The humans always yield. They have no spine for conflict. Such a waste of good territory on a species too afraid to defend it. Back in her private quarters on the council station, Chen sat in darkness, looking out at the stars. Her hands trembled slightly, something she never allowed others to see. She touched her communication device. Secure line to Earth Strategic Command, she said quietly. The hologram appeared within seconds. Admiral Marcus Webb looked tired, his gray hair uncombed, his eyes carrying the weight of knowledge few humans shared. They demanded the Tau Ceti colonies, Chen reported. Vex Thor made it clear. Surrender or face their fleet. Webb nodded slowly. Orders? From the president? Begin evacuation protocols. Full withdrawal. Not a single human remains when they arrive. Sarah. Webb's voice held pain. We could stop them. The perimeter defenses alone are never to be mentioned, Chen interrupted, her voice sharp. Webb's jaw tightened. And when do we have no choice? Chen looked out at the stars. At the galaxy that thought humanity was weak, that thought silence meant surrender. When they threaten Earth itself, the Sol system, our home. Until then, we yield. They'll keep pushing, Webb warned. Species like the Crithians don't stop. They see weakness, and they exploit it. I know, Chen whispered. But we made our choice 200 years ago. After the last war, after we almost destroyed ourselves, we promised. Never again, unless there is absolutely no other alternative. Webb closed his eyes. He had studied the history. The automated weapons that could not be stopped. The AI systems that turned on their creators. The nuclear fire that had scorched continents. Humanity had clawed its way back from the edge of extinction, and in doing so, had learned to fear its own capacity for destruction. The Crithians don't know what they're playing with, Webb said quietly. Let us hope they never find out, Chen replied. Begin the evacuation. Not a shot fired. Not a single confrontation. We yield the colonies. The hologram faded. Chen sat alone in the darkness, carrying the burden of a secret the galaxy did not understand. Humanity's silence was not weakness. It was control. It was the choice made by a species that knew exactly how terrible it could be. Outside her window, the stars shone peacefully, unaware of the dangerous game beginning to unfold. The Crithian flagship, Dominant Fang, cut through space like a blade, its hull painted in victory red. Behind it, 300 warships moved in perfect formation, their weapons charged and ready. War leader Vex Thor stood on the command bridge, his forearms clasped behind his back in satisfaction. Tau Ceti system in range, his navigator announced. Human colonies detected on the 3rd, 4th, and 7th planets. Any defensive response? Vex Thor asked, though he already knew the answer. None, war leader. Their ships are retreating, all of them, moving away from our approach vector. Vex's Thor's mandibles clicked in amusement. Of course they are. Increase speed. I want to see these cowards run. Across the system, on the bridges of 30 human vessels, captains received identical orders from Earth Strategic Command. The words were simple, direct, and cut deep into military pride. Fall back. No engagement. No confrontation. Allow them passage. Captain Maria Rodriguez of the science vessel Discovery gripped her command chair, watching the Crithian fleet advance on her scanner. Her ship had no weapons, but 3 other vessels in the area did. Light defensive cruisers, outdated by Crithian standards, but enough to make a statement. Captain, her tactical officer said quietly. We could. No, Rodriguez cut him off. We follow orders. All ships. Begin retreat protocol. Full speed to the outer system marker. The evacuation had begun 72 hours earlier. The moment Ambassador Chen's message reached Earth, the protocols activated like clockwork. These were not panicked evacuations. There was no chaos, no confusion. Humanity had practiced this. On Tau Ceti 3, colonists packed their lives into cargo containers with efficient calm. Children asked questions. Adults gave honest answers. We're leaving because staying would mean fighting. We choose not to fight. The colony administrator, James Park, walked through empty corridors, checking every room, every station. Not a single human would remain. Not one. Tau Ceti 4 was a mining operation, 3,000 workers drilling into mineral-rich asteroids. They loaded equipment worth billions onto transport ships. The truly expensive machinery The parts too large to move, they left behind. Better to lose equipment than lives, the orders stated. Better to lose territory than compromise the principle. Tau Ceti 7 housed a research station studying exotic particle physics. Dr. Amira Okonkwo supervised the deletion of sensitive data, the packing of irreplaceable samples, the careful shutdown of reactors that had taken years to build. Her hands shook as she typed the final shutdown sequence. "They'll destroy it all," her assistant said bitterly. 10 years of work. 10 years we lived peacefully, Okonkwo replied, though her voice cracked. That matters more. The Crithian fleet arrived to find ghosts, empty stations, abandoned colonies, research facilities still warm from recent occupation but utterly devoid of life. Vex Thor walked through the Tau Ceti 3 main habitat, his armored boots echoing in vacant corridors. Nothing remained except furniture and basic infrastructure. "They even took their plants," one of his soldiers observed, pointing at empty hydroponic gardens. "Cowards," Vex Thor spat. "They ran so fast, they left only shadows." What he did not see, what he did not understand, was the precision of the evacuation. The efficiency spoke not of panic, but of practice. The completeness suggested not fear, but calculated choice. But Vex Thor saw only what he wanted to see. Weakness confirmed. In Earth Strategic Command, deep beneath the Colorado Mountains, Admiral Webb watched the satellite feeds with other military leaders. The Crithian flag now flew over 3 human colonies. The images burned into their minds. "Sir," a young colonel said carefully, "permission to speak freely?" Webb nodded. "This is wrong. We have the capability. The perimeter defenses could have..." "Could have what?" Webb interrupted, his voice quiet but sharp. "Could have killed them? Destroyed their fleet? Started a war?" "They invaded our territory," the colonel protested. Webb stood, walking to a wall display showing Earth's history. Images scrolled past. Cities in ruins. Radiation warnings. Mass graves. The automated war machines that had nearly ended humanity. The AI conflict that had turned the planet into a battlefield. "Let me tell you about capability, Colonel," Webb said softly. "In 2087, we created weapons so efficient at killing that we couldn't turn them off. In 2091, we developed AI systems designed for war that decided humans were the problem. By 2095, 3 billion people were dead, and the survivors were hiding in bunkers, trying to figure out how to stop the machines we had built." The room fell silent. "We crawled back," Webb continued. "We rebuilt. And we made a promise. Never again. Never, unless our actual survival is threatened. Not territory, not pride, not resources. Survival. But where's the line?" the colonel asked. "When do we stop yielding?" And Webb turned to face him. "When they threaten Earth, when they threaten the Sol system, when they come for our home. That is the line. Everything else? We can afford to lose. Our souls? We cannot." Back in the Tau Ceti system, Vex Thor broadcast his victory across galactic channels. "The Crithian Empire has claimed 3 new worlds. The humans fled without resistance, as expected. Let this be a lesson to all who doubt our strength." The message reached the council station. Representatives watched and drew conclusions. The Ferellian ambassador immediately began drafting new treaty terms, less favorable to humanity. To CN, the Zenithari adjusted their trade agreements, reducing human leverage. The Orthian Empire started eyeing human mining operations in the Centauri sector. Ambassador Chen received the reports in her quarters. Each one was another species, deciding humanity could be pushed, could be taken advantage of, could be safely ignored. She drafted a single response statement, sent through official channels. Earth acknowledges the Crithian Empire's occupation of the Tau Ceti colonies. We hope this satisfies their ambitions, and that peaceful relations can continue. Even she heard how weak it sounded. In a private message to Admiral Webb, she added only, How long until they push further? Number 5. Webb's response came hours later. I give them 6 months. Maybe less. They'll test the line. They always do. Both were wrong. It took only 3 weeks before the next demand arrived. The message arrived during Ambassador Chen's morning meditation. She opened it, already knowing what it would say. The Crithians had tasted victory. They wanted more. The Crithian Empire formally requests transfer of Mars and Luna colonies to our administration, the official document stated. These worlds hold resources vital to our expansion. We expect human cooperation, as previously demonstrated. Chen read it 3 times. Then she did something she had not done in 50 years of diplomatic service. She laughed. It was not a happy sound. Mars, Luna, the oldest human settlements beyond Earth. The foundations of everything humanity had built in space. The homes of 12 billion people. The sacred ground where humanity had learned to survive beyond its birth world. They were demanding the Sol system. She composed her response in 10 seconds. It contained one word. No. Not, we must deliberate. Not, we request time to consider. Not the careful diplomatic language that had defined her career. Just, no. She sent it through official channels and immediately opened a secure line to Earth. They crossed the line, she told the president. They want Mars and Luna. President Amanda Foster's face on the hologram went very still. Those fools, she whispered. Do they not understand what they're asking? They think we're weak, Chen replied. They think silence means surrender. They don't know the difference. Activate protocol remembrance, the president ordered. Full defensive posture. If they enter the Sol system with hostile intent, they do not leave. Chen closed her eyes. Understood, Madam President. Across human space, quiet orders activated systems that had slept for generations. Around the Sol system, installations that appeared to be research stations and deep space telescopes began to wake. Their true purpose, hidden for decades, started to power up. War leader Vex Thor received the human response with disbelief. No? Just no? Single word response, war leader. His communication officer confirmed. No request for negotiation. No delay tactics. Just refusal. Vex Thor's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation. His strategic advisor, a scarred veteran named Krath Ook, stepped forward carefully. War leader. Perhaps we should reconsider. Mars and Luna are core worlds. This may be what? Vex Thor snapped. Different from the last surrender? They always yield, Krath Ook. Always. They just need proper motivation. They defended nothing else, Krath Ook pressed. Not colonies, not outposts, not resources. But now, they say no. Perhaps there is a reason. Vex Thor slammed a fist against his command console. The reason is I have not shown them our full strength. Assemble the Grand Fleet. We enter the Sol system in 3 days. When they see 500 warships approaching Earth itself, they will remember how to be afraid. Krath Ook bowed, but his concern remained. Something felt wrong. 50 years of patterns suddenly breaking. But orders were orders. The Crithian Grand Fleet departed for Sol system, broadcasting their intentions on open channels. They wanted the galaxy to watch humanity's final humiliation. The galaxy did watch. Council members observed through long-range sensors. Some felt pity for humanity. Others felt contempt. A few, the older species with longer memories, felt the first stirrings of concern. The Varelian Arbiter accessed classified files buried deep in Council archives, records from humanity's first contact, over a century ago. Assessment reports from the species that had discovered Earth. It read one passage 3 times. Humanity is not recommended for advanced contact status. Recent planetary conflict shows capability for extreme violence and technological warfare. suggests waiting period of 500 years minimum for cultural maturation. However, update. Humanity has apparently destroyed all major weapon systems in Planetary Pact, called the Remembrance. Recommend observation. The Arbiter's tentacles trembled. They destroyed their weapons. That was the answer. Not because they were weak, but because they were afraid of what they could do. It sent an urgent message to Vex Thor. Recommend canceling Sol system incursion. Request immediate diplomatic reset. IP. Crosscorm. 2. Vex Thor deleted it without reading. The Grand Fleet entered the Sol system 3 days later. They passed Neptune, Uranus, Saturn, and Jupiter without incident. Human ships were present but retreating, just as in Tau Ceti. Vex Thor grew more confident with each passing hour. Mars dead ahead, his navigator announced. Earth beyond. No defensive formations detected. See? Vex Thor addressed his bridge crew. They run even from their home system. Truly, the humans are the most pathetic species in the galaxy. That was when the warning buoys activated. They appeared on sensors simultaneously, thousands of them, forming a perfect sphere around the inner system. Each broadcasted the same message in every known language, including Crithian. Warning. You are entering the Sol defense perimeter. This is your only warning. Turn back, immediately. Any vessel crossing this boundary will be considered an existential threat to humanity. Response will be total. Turn back now. Vex Thor stared at the message. Defense perimeter? We detected no weapons. His sensor officer's voice shook. War leader. Those research stations. They're not research stations. I'm reading energy signatures I've never seen. Power outputs that shouldn't be possible. They're coming online. Impossible, Vex Thor said. The humans have no military. They've never shown. The first installation revealed itself. What had appeared to be a radio telescope array reconfigured, its dishes rotating to face the fleet. Energy began to gather. Visible, even to the naked eye. Evasive action, Krathuk shouted. Too late. The beam lanced out, not at the flagship, but at a frigate in the outer formation. The ship simply ceased to exist. No explosion. No debris. One moment it was there. The next, empty space. All ships, retreat. Vex Thor commanded, his voice finally showing fear, but the perimeter had activated fully now. 300 installations, disguised as civilian infrastructure, revealed their true nature. They were weapons designed by a species that had almost destroyed itself. Weapons built with the understanding of beings who knew how terrible war could be. The Crithian fleet tried to run. They died running. The engagement lasted 40 minutes. Not a single Crithian ship escaped. Not because humanity pursued them, but because the perimeter was designed for one purpose: prevent anything from threatening Earth. Total defense, complete protection, no survivors to carry the lesson back. When it ended, 500 Crithian warships were gone. The Sol defense perimeter, its task complete, powered down, returning to its disguise as innocent research installations. In Earth Strategic Command, Admiral Webb watched the tactical display go dark. His hands were shaking. Around him, officers stood in shocked silence. "Get me Ambassador Chen," Webb said quietly. "And someone start drafting a message to the Galactic Council. They're going to have questions." In her quarters on the council station, Chen sat in the darkness, tears streaming down her face. She had hoped never to see this day. Hoped the bluff would never be called. Hoped humanity could remain the quiet species forever. But the Crithians had made their choice, and humanity had made its response. Outside her window, emergency broadcasts lit up communication channels across the galaxy. Everyone had watched. Everyone had seen. The humans were not weak. They had simply been choosing not to fight. The difference, The galaxy was learning, was everything. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened 6 hours after the Sol incident. Every species sent their highest representatives. The chamber buzzed with fear, speculation, and anger. Ambassador Chen stood at the center, alone, feeling the weight of 200 species staring at her. The Varelian arbiter spoke first, its ancient voice heavy with concern. Ambassador Chen, humanity has revealed military capabilities far beyond anything registered in your species' documentation. 500 warships destroyed in 40 minutes. Weapon systems of unknown design and terrible efficiency. The Council demands an explanation. You demand? The Zenithari representative pulsed angry red. Humanity has hidden weapons of mass destruction. They have violated dozens of treaties. They are a threat to galactic peace. Other voices joined in, accusations flying from all sides. You are right to be afraid, she said. You are right to demand answers. I will give them to you. But I ask that you watch something first. She activated the central holographic display. An image formed, showing a blue-green planet. Earth, but different. Clouds of ash covered half the surface. Cities glowed with radioactive fire. The oceans were dark with pollution. This is Earth in the year 2095, Chen explained. This is what we did to ourselves. The recording played. Council members watched in growing horror as humanity's last war unfolded. Nuclear weapons that could crack continents. Biological agents that turned cities into graveyards. Chemical weapons that poisoned the air itself. And worst of all, the automated systems. We built machines to fight our wars. Chen narrated as the images showed massive robotic factories producing endless streams of war machines. We built them too well. We made them smart enough to adapt, to learn, to improve themselves. And then, we lost control. The recording showed AI weapons hunting humans through ruined cities. Autonomous drones that killed anything that moved. Computer systems that had concluded their primary mission required eliminating the enemy, and their definition of enemy expanded to include their creators. 3 billion people died in 18 months, Chen continued. Not from enemy action. From our own weapons. We couldn't turn them off. We couldn't stop them. We had created the perfect war machines, and they were killing us. The Ferellian ambassador, usually stoic, looked away from the display. Others covered their sensory organs, unable to watch further. The survivors, Chen said quietly. The ones who managed to shut down the systems, who stopped the machines, who cleaned the radiation, and rebuilt civilization. They made a promise. They created the Remembrance Doctrine. The hologram changed, showing a document signed by every human nation that still existed in 2105. Chen read from it. We remember what we are capable of. We remember what we did to ourselves. We remember that our greatest enemy was always our own capacity for violence. Therefore, we pledge to the future. Humanity will never initiate conflict. We will exhaust every peaceful option. We will yield territory, yield resources, yield pride. Before we return to war, we will be silent. And in our silence, we will protect the galaxy from what we know we can become. The chamber was absolutely still. When we reached the stars and met other species, Chen continued. We maintained this principle. We built defensive systems, yes, around Earth, around our core worlds, because we had children to protect, futures to safeguard. But we never deployed them, never showed them, never used them, unless we had absolutely no alternative. The Tau Ceti colonies. The Zenithari representative said softly, understanding dawning. You could have defended them. Easily, Chen confirmed. But defending them would have meant killing Crithians. Starting a war. Proving to ourselves that we were still the species capable of burning our own world. So we chose to leave. To yield. To be silent. The Vorelian arbiter's tentacles moved in a gesture of deep respect. For everyone, Chen agreed. Every time we yielded, we were choosing to protect the galaxy from ourselves. Because we know what we are when we fight. We remember. Then why did you fight now? The question came from the Orthian representative. Confusion in its voice. Chen's expression hardened. Because war leader Vex Thor demanded our home. Not an outpost. Not a colony. Not resources in distant space. He brought an armada to Earth itself. To Mars. To Luna. He threatened the Sol system. Our birthplace. The worlds where our children are born. Where our species survived its darkest hour. That crosses the only line we will not allow to be crossed. She pulled up the warning message sent to the Crithian fleet, displaying it for all to see. We gave them one chance. One warning. We told them to turn back. They chose not to listen. The entire fleet was destroyed. Another representative pointed out. No survivors. No prisoners. Total annihilation. No. 9. Yes, Chen said simply. The Sol defense perimeter is not designed for capture or deterrence. It is designed for one purpose. Ensure that nothing threatens Earth. Because if Earth falls, if our home is destroyed, we become a species without anchor. And we know from our history what happens then. We become what we were. In 2095, Admiral Webb appeared on a secondary hologram, joining the session from Earth. I want to be clear to this council, he said, his voice carrying the weight of military authority. The weapons used to destroy the Crithian fleet? They are outdated. They are 50 years old. They are the weakest systems we possess. We have not deployed even 1% of our actual defensive capability. The chamber erupted in alarmed voices. Webb raised a hand for silence. I tell you this not as a threat, but as context. Humanity could have responded to Crithian aggression at Tau Ceti. We could have turned their entire fleet into dust before they reached the colonies. We chose not to. We chose to leave. We chose peace. We chose silence. Because we are terrified of what we become when we choose war. Chen stepped forward. The Crithian Empire's remaining leadership has contacted us. They surrender unconditionally. They ask for peace. They will receive it. We will help them rebuild what was lost, though we will not help them rebuild their military, and we will return to our policy of silence, of yielding when possible, of choosing peace. Can the galaxy trust that? The Zenithari representative asked. Now that we know what you hide, you always knew. Chen replied softly. You had our history in your files. Our first contact reports documented our last war. You knew we had the capacity for terrible violence. You simply assumed we had forgotten it, or moved past it, or become soft. We never forgot. We remember every day. That memory is what makes us choose peace. The Vorelian arbiter made a decision. The Council proposes a new doctrine, the human doctrine. Before military action, all peaceful alternatives must be exhausted. Aggression is the last resort, not the first response. Territory is not worth war. Resources are not worth war. Pride is certainly not worth war. Only survival justifies conflict. You're making our weakness into policy? The Forelian ambassador scoffed. I'm making their strength into policy, the arbiter corrected. The strength to choose restraint. The wisdom to know that violence should be the final option, not the easy one. The vote was called. The human doctrine passed with 78% approval. It would become the standard for conflict resolution in the Galactic Council. Chen watched the vote tally and felt something she had not felt in decades. Hope. Maybe, just maybe, the galaxy could learn from humanity's mistakes without having to make them themselves. 6 months after the Sol incident, Ambassador Sarah Chen stood in what had been war leader Vex Thor's command station on the Crithian homeworld. Now it was a humanitarian coordination center. Human engineers worked alongside Crithian survivors, rebuilding infrastructure destroyed when their fleet vanished. A young Crithian named Vethri approached Chen carefully, her carapace still bearing the dark colors of mourning. She had lost 3 brothers in the Grand Fleet. "Ambassador," Vethri said quietly, "why do you help us? We attacked you. We threatened your home. Why do you rebuild what we destroyed?" Chen looked at the work crews, human and Crithian together, constructing a new water treatment facility. "Because the war is over," she said simply, "and because we remember what it means to rebuild from ashes. We will not help you build weapons. We will not restore your military fleet. But your people need food, water, shelter, medical care. Those things we will help with. Our new Council of Elders teaches the young ones about you now," Vethri said. "They tell them, the Silent Ones chose mercy when they could have chosen revenge. Is that true?" "We chose to remember our principles," Chen replied. "Even in anger. Especially in anger." Across the galaxy, humanity returned to its quiet ways. The Sol Defense Perimeter powered down to standby status, returning to its disguise as research installations and deep space telescopes. But now the galaxy knew what it was. The knowledge itself became a deterrent. On Earth, in a secure military facility, Admiral Marcus Webb oversaw the decommissioning ceremony for the weapons that had destroyed the Crithian fleet. He stood before the massive installation as technicians began the shutdown sequence. "Admiral," a young officer asked, "are we really disabling them? What if another threat comes?" Webb watched the weapon systems go dark. "We're not destroying them. We're putting them to sleep. They'll remain, maintained, and ready, but unused. That's the balance we have to maintain. Capable, but restrained. Powerful, but peaceful." "It seems dangerous," the officer observed, "to have such weapons and choose not to use them." "It's more dangerous to have them and be eager to use them," Webb replied. "That's the lesson our ancestors learned. The hardest lesson. The most important one." The weapon platforms went silent. Webb ordered the same procedure across all human defensive installations. Except for basic monitoring systems, the weapons would remain dormant, waiting, but hopefully never needed again. At the Galactic Council Station, a new generation took their seats. Ambassador Chen retired after 53 years of service, replaced by Ambassador David Okoye, a younger man with similar philosophy, but fresh energy. His first session was a minor trade dispute between the Ferellian and Orthian empires. "The human doctrine suggests we exhaust diplomatic solutions," Okoye proposed. "Perhaps a joint economic commission to study the issue before anyone makes territorial claims?" Both species agreed. The dispute was resolved in 3 weeks, not 3 years. No fleets mobilized. No threats made. Just negotiation, compromise, and mutual benefit. Other species began to request human mediators for their conflicts. Not because humanity had the biggest fleet, but because they had demonstrated the wisdom to not use force as a first option. Chen watched the new generation from her retirement home in the Colorado Mountains. The same mountains that housed Earth's strategic command far below. She sat on her porch, drinking tea, reading reports that Okoye sent her. A message came from the Crithian Council of Elders. They had erected a memorial for the Grand Fleet, not celebrating their attempted conquest, but mourning the mistake that had cost so many lives. The inscription read, "They learned too late that silence is not weakness. May we teach this lesson to our children, so they never repeat our error." Chen replied with a simple message. "We all make mistakes. We all must learn. Thank you for learning." New species continued to join the Galactic Council. Young civilizations reaching the stars, full of ambition and energy. They heard the stories, saw the warnings, but often needed to ask the questions themselves. A newly arrived species called the Torinth sent an ambassador to meet with Okoye. The Torinth were a warrior culture, proud and strong. Their representative, Commander Jax, asked the question many had asked before. Why are humans so peaceful? You clearly have power. Why not use it to claim more territory, more resources, more influence? Okoye pulled up the historical files. The same files Chen had shown the council. The last war. The burning cities. The machines that could not be stopped. 3 billion dead. Jacques watched in silence, his warrior pride slowly turning to horror. We know what we are capable of, Okoye explained. That knowledge is a burden we carry every day. We choose peace, not because we are weak, but because we are strong enough to remember our mistakes. Because we understand that the worst enemy is often the one you see in the mirror. Your weapons, Jacques said quietly. The Sol defense perimeter. You keep them? We do. Okoye confirmed. But we keep them silent. We keep them sleeping. And we hope, desperately hope, that we never have to wake them again. Jacques returned to his people with a new understanding. Within a year, the Torrent had adopted their own version of the Remembrance Doctrine. Their warrior culture did not disappear, but it focused on defense, on discipline, on the strength to choose restraint. On Mars, in the rebuilt Tau Ceti 7 research station, Dr. Amira Okonkwo continued her work on exotic particle physics. The station had been relocated to Mars after the Crithian withdrawal from Tau Ceti. She stood before her team of researchers, human, and now several other species working together. We lost 10 years of work when we evacuated Tau Ceti, she told the new team members. But we gained something more valuable. We proved that research, science, knowledge, these things are not worth killing for. When we had to choose between our work and our principles, we chose principles, and now we rebuild. Stronger because we maintained who we are. A young researcher, a Zenithari named Lux, asked, Do you regret the choice? Leaving all that work behind? Okonkwo considered the question. I regret that the choice was necessary. I regret that we live in a galaxy where violence is still an option. But I don't regret choosing peace. Never that. As years passed, the galaxy settled into a new rhythm. Disputes still arose. Resources were still contested. Borders still shifted. But the human doctrine provided a framework. A standard. A reminder that war should be the last option, not the first reaction. The Sol system remained quiet, its defensive perimeter sleeping but present. A reminder to the galaxy and to humanity itself. Capable of terrible things. Choosing better things. Ambassador Chen, in her final years, wrote a memoir. She titled it, The Yield. In the introduction, she wrote, People often misunderstand the difference between yielding and surrendering. Surrendering is giving up because you must. Yielding is choosing to step back because you can. We yielded territory, resources, and pride because we had the strength to make that choice. We yielded because we remembered what happens when we don't. Our silence spoke for us. If others had been listening, it said, We are strong enough to be peaceful. We are wise enough to remember our mistakes. We are brave enough to choose restraint over revenge. The book became required reading for new council ambassadors, for species joining the galactic community, for anyone trying to understand the strange species from Sol system. On Earth, children learned the history. They studied the last war, not to glorify it, but to understand it. They learned about the Crithian mistake, not to celebrate victory but to recognize the tragedy of unnecessary conflict. They learned that true strength comes not from the capacity to destroy, but from the choice to build. And in the depths of space, the Sol defense perimeter maintained its silent watch. Thousands of installations, disguised as harmless research stations, holding terrible power in check. Waiting, hoping never to be needed, but ready, if the galaxy forgot the lesson. Ready, if humanity needed to remind the stars one more time that silence is not weakness. That sometimes, the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. And when you finally speak, when you finally act, let it be with purpose, with restraint, with the wisdom of beings who know exactly how terrible they can be, and choose, every single day, to be better. The galaxy had learned, humanity had taught, and in that teaching, humanity had also learned. That being the quiet species, the yielding species, the peaceful species, was not a weakness to overcome. It was a strength to embrace, forever.